Well, hello, and happy Saturday, everyone. I hope everybody is having a great day and a great weekend so far. Hey, we are back at it again with another great episode of The Color of Motion. My name is, where I like to say, stories come in all shades. My name is Don Terrell, and I want to welcome you to the show. So glad to have you back. You guys all know the drill. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Say hey, so I can give you a shout out on the screen here. So let me know where you're tuning in from, who you are, and I can give you a big hello. Again, I want to thank everyone for joining me. Like I said, we've had a big week. Like I said, last week was a big week. We had our, of course, 1 year episode of The Color of Motion, just celebrating 1 year doing this show when we had a lot of fun. If you haven't checked out the episode, make sure you go check out the episode for sure. Mr. Multiverse, I appreciate you tuning in from YouTube there. Let me know, location wise, where you're tuning in from. If you're tuning in from Africa, where our guest is from, let me know. I'd love to hear. Or what city, if you are here in the states, where you're tuning in from, for sure. Appreciate that, Mr. Multiverse. Like I said, we are having some fun here for sure. Make sure that you check out, like I said, we broadcast live, of course, today, Saturday, every Saturday afternoon, 3 p.m. Central, live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. You can connect with me. Oops. Make sure you connect with me on all my social channels. Right here, you can find them. Definitely want you to be a part of the community. Connect with me. Like I said, be a part of the community. It's growing. We are having a lot of fun. Got a lot of great guests on, and super excited about my guest today for sure. So definitely want you to be a part of it. Like I said, we do broadcast live on LinkedIn and YouTube and Facebook. Make sure that if you're not already, be a part of the Facebook group community. Like I said, our group is growing. Facebook.com/group/The Color of Motions. Get engaged. We want you to be a part of the show. If you do happen to be one of those ones that loves to check out the show from LinkedIn or Facebook, I always highly encourage everyone to be a part of the YouTube channel. Go check out the YouTube channel. Subscribe, hit the bell notification, be a part of the show for sure. Give a thumbs up. That definitely helps all the episodes in the channel. Something new I wanted to throw in there. So I definitely want you to be a part of the community for sure. Like I said, as I said last week on our 1 year show, we got a lot of new things happening. We just are getting ready to launch our, swag items for sure. And definitely want you to, get some of it for sure. We're going to be having some hoodies, shirts, mugs. Make sure you go over to coloromotion.net/swag. Put in your information so that you can get notified. Like I said, our goal is, of course, definitely by the beginning of the year, but hopefully, like I said, trying to get all of that stuff together before Christmas. I think they make great Christmas gifts for sure. But If you sign up, you'll be on the list so we can notify you when all the stuff gets released and is available. Like I said, we're working to, of course, get the site up and everything so that you'll be able to find it there as well. Uh, let me see who this is. I always like to see who it is, even though, like I said, the name, Mr. Wayne Carnegie. My man Wayne tuning in. I appreciate that, Wayne. Super talented, you know, artist as well that I had on and doing some great things as well. So appreciate you, my friend, tuning in, loving the new motion graphics art for this show. Yeah, I'm constantly, I'm always constantly trying to work to make it get better for sure and level it up. So I appreciate the love and everything. Like I said, I am super excited about today's guest. Been working to get him on for a while and super talented, and we're gonna dive into it for sure. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. I think I got everything, but I'm pretty sure I probably forgot. So, but we will throw them up as the show goes on. So, with that, without any further ado, I'm ready to dive into this. My next guest is a 20-year-old award winning comic book artist and creator from Nigeria. He got into comics professionally in 2017 and is co founder and managing director at Brown Roofs Studios, an Afrocentric comic book based in Ibadan, Nigeria. And I hope I pronounced that right, Ibadan, Nigeria. He's also the founder of Comics Archive Africa, which we're going to talk a little bit about as well, a platform where he promotes African and Black comic books, animations, creators, and the Black creative community in general, with over 10,000 active followers on Instagram. 10,000. You know, I'm scratching to get above 100. So, founder of Unibadan Comic Convention, Nigeria's first campus comic convention. He's published comics such as Advocate and Jakuta, and which I just read last week, and it's a great comic. You definitely have to check it out for sure. We're going to dive into that as well. And is presently the content acquisition and licensing manager for Vortex 24/7, a leading digital platform for binge reading African comics on subscriptions. Everybody, please help me welcome my very special guest and friend, Mr. Adedayo Erivic. Adedayo, how's it going, my man? Can you hear me?
Good evening.
All right. I appreciate you being on the show, man, and super excited to sit down and talk to you about what's going on with Brown Roof Studios and all the content that you're putting out.
It's a pleasure, and thank you for getting me on your show. I really, really appreciate it. It's a pleasure.
No, the pleasure is all mine, man. Like I said, I had a chance to, of course, read the comic that you sent me. Amazing, amazing. I love the story, love the artwork, and super excited to sit down and talk about it for sure. So we're gonna dive into it. Tell me, I mean, what initially got you interested in comics? Were you always interested in comics, or was this something you kind of picked up a little bit later in life, or were you always interested in cartoons and comics and animation when you were younger?
Okay, initially, I never had intentions to get into comic books because I had several other things I wanted to venture into. But I discovered comics in 2016, and that was when I started to draw comic books, and that was when I started my career professionally. Although I got professionally strongly into comics in 2017. But my discovery of comics was in 2016. That's where I got to, see comics as a medium for storytelling. Although before that time, I've always been drawing, I've always been, making several other kinds of arts. I ventured into, junk art, recycling, waste products, and turning them into art. But basically, I discovered comics in 2016, and it was since then I decided I want to venture into it because I wanted to tell stories because I write as well. I wanted to tell stories, but I discovered comics is a better medium to tell stories. You use visuals, you use images, and you use several other elements of art to tell your stories. So that was exactly how I discovered comics, how I got into comics, and that was what inspired me into getting into comics.
Gotcha, gotcha. Obviously, and I've had the pleasure of talking with, and especially within the last few weeks, most of my guests have been from Lagos, Africa, Nigeria. In over in Africa. Do you see? Is it a big industry, or is are comics really big over where you're at?
Oh, okay, comics is still developing in Africa presently, but I won't say comics is a small thing in Africa anymore, especially in Nigeria. Comics is now a very viable medium. It's a big thing because we have so many people who are into comics in Africa. We have so many content creators, we have animators, we have digital artists, different kind of people. And when you talk about African comics, Nigeria is the headquarter of African comics presently. And that's why you are definitely going to see many of the comics coming out of Africa are coming from Nigeria. So Nigeria is developing but very huge when it comes to comic and other creative contents.
Got you, got you. So, like I said, you were always a creator. What did you have in mind before you got into comics? Was there anything that you kind of had in mind or thought that you might be doing other than comics before you got into it? I mean, you were always kind of drawing and creating. You said, "Oh, we, we still got them here." So, I mean, did you have an idea of what you might be creating? Hopefully, we didn't lose them. Did you hear? Did you get my last question there? Adedayo?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Did you
Yes,
get
I
my
can hear you.
last question? Okay.
Yes, definitely. Okay, initially before getting into comics, I just wanted to draw, make portrait pictures. I wanted to go into realistic art, realistic paintings, and so many other things like that because basically it was just about me creating, not necessarily creating content, but just drawing, painting. Those were things that I was so interested in before I discovered comics. And initially, I just wanted to have a large gallery with so many of my works in there, where people can walk in, they can view my works, they can see my content, and you know buy as well. So that was basically the dream. That was the idea I had initially before I got into comic book. So
Got you. Got you. And obviously, Africa's got a rich history, so there's obviously a lot of stories that you can tell. Are you kind of, and like I said, the comic book that you sent me, Jakuta, is
okay.
really kind of, I wouldn't say sci-fi. How would you describe Jakuta? And we're gonna show, like I said, before you get into that, we're gonna show some of the artwork here so that people can get an idea. Very, very, like I said, the artwork is really great, and like I said, I love the story of Jakuta. What I mean is that a uh, traditional story out of Africa that you're retelling?
Yes,
So where does the story originate? I mean, tell us a little bit about Jakuta, what the story is, and why you kind of decided to create it and recreate it.
Okay, Jakuta is a real life story about the third Alafin of Oyo, because Oyo is one of the major cities in Africa located in Nigeria. So Jakuta is basically Shango, and Shango is a character, is a king known by several people across the world. So if you ask people from, let's say, people from, let's say, Brazil, people from the Yoruba culture of Nigeria, people across the world, they know who Shango is. So one thing we decided to do, aside the fact that several other people have picked up these stories and they've told these stories over time, we decided that we wanted to tell the story differently. We wanted to show Jakuta, I mean Shango, we wanted to show him as the king who he is. Basically, we wanted to show that richness in African culture, because many of the contents we create in the studio are basically African content. So Jakarta is a king in Africa, a king in Oyo Empire in Africa, one of the oldest empires in Africa, and he has several. When you read this story, you get to discover some of it, because I don't want to drop any spoiler here.
Yeah,
So I just exactly. So I just want people to just check it out and they'll see for themselves. But one of the things we decide to focus on in Jakarta is to portray Africa in the real sense, because over time we have the white creators, the white media telling African stories. So our goal and our aim is to tell African stories from the point of view of an African.
yeah,
So that is one of the reasons we decided to focus and work on African contents, and one of them is Jakuta. So
gotcha.
if you look at the costume, if you look at the environment, if you look at the character design and so many other things, we had a lot of time that we used in focusing on these things so that we can, show Africa. Africa is not just a place where we have tattered huts and just, it's not a poor region like many media has portrayed over time.
Yeah,
Africa is rich. When you talk about their attires, when you talk about their buildings, when you talk about their way of life, their culture, and every other thing, even the interactions that come in across African nations. Africa is rich, Africa is big, Africa is, on a different level compared to what the white media has consistently
yeah,
shown people. Yeah.
yeah, gotcha. And kind of to that point, I'm kind of curious. What did you think about Black Panther when it came out? As I mean, obviously it's a fictional, superhero, and it's kind of a, Wakanda is kind of a fictional, place. But from an African point of view, what was your thought about, you know, like you said, how a predominantly white company portrayed this black character?
Okay, Black Panther. When I got to watch Black Panther, because I've always followed the comics, just a bit of the comics over time, and then I was super excited when they announced they will be releasing a movie on Black Panther, and when the movie dropped, it was phenomenal. It was exceptional because there was a lot of attention to details in the movie, and if you are indigenously African, you discover that it wasn't they just guessing that, okay, this is how this thing should look in Africa, or this is how this thing should look in Africa. They focused, they did a lot of research, and I would say Black Panther is close to portraying what the African society, what the African kingdom used to look like. Because originally, if you look at so many movies, so many depictions of Africa, they show jungles, they show zebras, they
Yeah,
show several other things. Exactly. And this is basically not what Africa is all about.
yeah,
Africa is bigger than that. We don't just meet donkeys, or we don't just meet camels
yeah,
or zebras all around. So Black Panther is nice. Black Panther is exciting. In fact, it influences my own creation as a creator as well, because looking at the designs, looking at the color theory, looking at the environment, the props, the set design, and so many other things like that, Black Panther was able to do justice to what the African society looks like. And it wasn't just, it wasn't just about huts and, let's say, tattered buildings, let's say mud houses, like so many other, let's say, movies have portrayed Africa to be. Black Panther was able to infuse technological advancements into cultural African setting. So that is one of the things that made Black Panther stand out for me. So Black Panther was awesome. It was
Got,
great.
got you. And it's in, like I said, it's interesting that you said that because I've got into that kind of same conversation, like I said, with the last couple of guests that I had, as far as how Africa is portrayed from this point of view, and how most people in the West, like you said, when you say Africa, they think lions, jungle, that type of thing, as opposed to a rich culture, a growing
Yeah,
culture, and a a technologically growing culture.
yeah, yeah,
So,
definitely.
was that obviously your driving force for starting, Brown Roof Studios and your Comic Con and everything, really trying to tell the African story from an African perspective?
Yes, basically, Brown Roof Studios is dedicated towards telling indigenous African stories, telling undiluted, unapologetic African contents. Basically, from the point of view of an African, it's necessary for you to be a part of a culture, be a part of a society before you can know what the struggles of that society is, before you can know what the reality of that society is. And that is one of the reasons we started Brown Roof Studios, so we can tell African stories from the point of view of an African, from the point of view of someone who has experienced the African lifestyle, who have seen how Africa is, who knows about Africa, not just someone who is making, just guessing what Africa should look like.
Yeah,
So that is one of the reasons Brand New Studios is starting out. And also one of the reasons Comics Archive was started as well, to promote some of these contents coming from Africa. Because it's one thing to make content about Africa, it's another thing to promote some of this content for people to see.
yeah,
Because if you are consistently making content and contents are coming out of Africa and people are not seeing them, then it becomes a problem. There's no way you are, putting those contents into the media, letting people see the content,
yeah,
retelling the African history, and letting Africans, making them proud of their own culture and proud of their own
yeah.
roots as an African. So that's basically what Comics Archive Africa and Brown Root Studios is all about.
Gotcha, gotcha. And everybody, we will be putting all this information in the show notes so that you can go check out Comics Archive Africa and Vortex 24/7, so that you can, like Adedayo said, consume African content, Black and African content, for sure. Um, Obviously, like I said, were your parents kind of instrumental in, as you were growing up, kind of fostering your passion for drawing and just arts and comics in general, or was this something you picked up from your friends, or how did you? I mean, like I said, were your parents really kind of instrumental in as you grew up?
Well, I'm glad to have liberal parents, especially when it comes to picking you know, your choice of career or whatever thing you want to venture into. In as much as it isn't dangerous, it's not harmful, and it's something creative. Although initially when I started drawing, I got some level of support from my parents. Although they were quite indifferent. I would say they were indifferent. They were just glad that okay, I was quite creative.
Yeah.
But when I was getting into comics, I had a little bit of um, my mother especially was trying to make me see things differently because people believe that making comics is not quite lucrative. That's one of the things people believe in,
Yeah.
especially in this part of the world. Although I'm very glad now that the orientation is becoming different. We're having more and more people getting to realize that okay, we need creators, we need people venturing into comics, animations, and creating content for Africa, so that we can bring African kids and keep them abreast of their culture, let them know about their origin and so
Yeah.
many other things like that. So my parents were quite indifferent. Even right until now, my mother especially does not really know what comic books are about, and I don't even have so many friends who are into comic book making. It's just of recent I started to get into community of people who are making comics. But when I was starting out, then I was just lucky to discover comics,
Yeah.
and then I decided to teach myself the rudiments. I decided to start pushing myself. Well, I'm quite glad. I'm quite glad that I got a considerable level of support, from friends especially, despite that many of them don't even know about comics initially, but they gave the support
Yeah.
because they started to see the development, the orientation that it's creating, the awareness, and so many other things like that. So I would say my parents were indifferent, and I never got to pick making comics from friends as well.
Yeah.
It was something I discovered on my own, and I decided to develop my craft, develop my passion, develop my interest as well, and as well brew my friends and family into it. So
Yeah.
that was how comics was for me.
Gotcha, gotcha. And this was kind of another thing I kind of picked up from some of the other people. Do you think one of the I guess big issues is that there aren't a lot of schools over there that are teaching it, say as it is over here, where we've got a prevalent amount of cartoons, animation, just
Yes.
companies, studios, schools that are doing it. Do you think like that's a big thing that that's kind of a thing that you're a hurdle that's going to have to be kind of overcome, getting more schools there that are going to start teaching it to more to others?
Yes. Okay. Through my research, I discovered that there are so many school students over here in Nigeria that know about comic books. You ask kids, they know about Spider Man, they know about Superman, they know about Batman and several other characters from the foreign media. And there's this popular comic book in Nigeria. There's Super Strikers. I don't know if you've gotten to see about that before.
Mm.
So Super Strikers is a football game. It's basically about football, and then a lot of people know about it, especially school students. But many of them don't know that they are indigenous contents coming out of Africa or Nigerian studios. A lot of them don't even know that Nigeria make comic books.
Yeah,
A lot of them don't even know that they are creators in Nigeria. So, but over time, this the comic book culture is changing. Like I said earlier, people are starting to realize. School students are starting to know about some of the creators in Nigeria. We have several popular characters in Nigeria that have been featured on some of these big platforms across the world. So um, the awareness is coming in, and schools are starting to open up to it. And even presently, I'm planning a school rally across the city where we go to, schools across Ibadan because I'm basically I'm based in Ibadan. Ibadan is a very large city, and one of the things we intend to do is want to make school students, especially, imbibe the comic book culture. So we are planning a school rally very soon, and we are going across schools, orientating students about comic book, about African content, about indigenous content, and also how they themselves can break into the comic book industry in Nigeria and Africa. Because, there are so many kids who can draw. They can draw, they can, but many of them don't even know that making comic book is a thing they can venture into.
Yeah.
And we also, yes, exactly. So they don't know making comics is something they can venture into. That's why you see some of them, they just draw stories and they make impressive art, but there's nobody to orientate them, to make them realize that you can definitely do this thing as a profession. And also because I think one of the major challenges is the fact that some of the parents don't even know that making comic book is a thing.
Yeah.
So they don't even know making comic book is a thing. So they don't try to allow their kids get into it because number one, they feel it's not lucrative. Many parents are out there trying to make their kids get into something that will fetch them money, and that's
Yeah.
why you see them pick. Yeah, yeah. You see them pick the popular professions. You see them talk about their kids being doctors, being lawyers, being engineers, and some of these other professions. But
Yeah.
none of them talk about becoming comic book creators, content creators, and all of that. And I think it boils down to the fact that most of the times when people, especially in this part of the country, when they hear anything about art, the first thing that comes to their mind is, oh, you're just going to be painting banners and all of that. So they don't see it as something huge that people can venture into. So this is one of the reasons we are starting the rally in Ibadan,
Yeah.
and we are going across schools to orientate kids and make them realize that there are content coming out of Nigeria, coming out of Africa, and you yourself don't just need to be the consumer. You
Yeah.
can also be a creator of this content and make um, you can make something reasonable out of it for sustenance.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, there's like I said, it's such a rich history and such a rich culture there. You got a plethora of stories that that you can create from. Do you feel like the internet and just the availability of seeing, say, what's happening over here, what's happening in, say, London, England, and other places, do you feel like the internet has kind of helped that along as far as giving that picture to others that, hey, this is something that we can do and that we can be content creators?
Okay, it's not like some years ago, the only way you get to read comic books is if you buy hard prints, hard copies of the
Yeah.
comic books. But things have become quite different now because we have digital content everywhere across social media.
Yeah.
So one of the things you just need to do is log into the internet. You can find tons of comic books. Aside getting comic, because when there's a difference between you being a fan of comic content and you being a creator. Now, those are two different things. And it used to be so difficult for you to break into the industry before because you need to learn, you need to understand the craft and so many other things. But now it's quite different because there are tons of videos on YouTube, for instance,
Yeah.
where you can see other creators, and you can also pick up tutorials, and you can also learn and teach yourself to be a creator, and you can start putting out your content. There are several platforms like Webtoons, several platforms where
Yeah.
you don't necessarily have to you know make prints before you can get people to see your content.
Yeah.
I just do something, put it on there. So the internet and social media in general has contributed to a growth of
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, creatorship. So this is one of the major development that has come over time when it comes to
Yeah.
content creation in this part of the world.
Yeah. And I always like to say now is such a great time to be a content creator because you have all these channels now to put your
Exactly.
content out there, whether it's like you said, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all these channels. So it's if you're a content creator, it's kind of leveled the playing field a little as far as getting your content out there and really sharing it with the world.
Definitely. Definitely.
So I mean, obviously, there's a lot of we see Africa differently than, like I said, it actually is. What other big misconception do you see that, say, people over here in the West or other places have about Africa? I mean, do you think of, like I said, of course, Africa is just not all jungle. It is not all lions and tigers and all of that. I mean, obviously, there's a rich history and culture. What other kind of misconceptions have you kind of noticed that we may think over here?
Okay, there are several misconceptions actually. Um, First, I would like to say Africa is not a country. Africa is a continent, and there are several countries under Africa. Um, I'm in Nigeria, for instance, and Nigeria is the biggest black nation in the world. And it's quite disappointing when I see several people talk about Africa as a country, and then you see them talking about, oh, what are those things that you people do in Africa? What are those things? Africa is not a country.
Yeah,
That's one of the major misconceptions that I see many people make about Africa. And like you've said earlier, Africa is not a jungle. When you want to see people make representations on maybe talk about Africa, maybe in their contents, they talk about Africa like a jungle. It's either people over romanticize what Africa look like, or they portray Africa poorly. So there are movies where you see they'll make a representation of Africa showing, let's say, a huge gigantic palace, maybe in the bush, in the forest, and they'll show zebras, showing lions, showing some of these wild animals. It's understandable that they are trying to show that Africa is luxurious, but that's not how luxurious Africa is. We don't just have wild animals walking around
yeah,
us. Exactly. We don't have that. So it's one of the major misconceptions. And I think one of the major misconceptions I see also is the fact that many people think that there's nothing like civilization in Africa until maybe the West
yeah,
came into Africa. There was a long period of colonization, and then there are many people who believe that it was, let's say, the Europeans that brought civilization into Africa. But Africa has always been developing. Civilization means several things to several people.
yeah,
So we were developing at our own pace, because if you look at some of the historical artifacts that we have, look at the old Benin Empire, for instance. They had electricity, they had good roads, they had several other things that you can call the peak of civilization.
yeah,
So it wasn't when the West came down to Africa that they tried to liberate Africa and bring civilization to Africa. No, it's a misconception. For instance, we're talking about the old Oyo Empire in Jakuta. Jakuta is, we intend to show that African kingdoms were civilized, African kingdoms were big, African kingdoms were not just, a small area of land with maybe one person being the leader and several other people. And we don't grunt in Africa. We don't sound like Tarzan. We don't
yeah,
sound like Tarzan in Africa. We have our languages, we have a distinct way of communication. So we don't just go all about sounding like monkeys and the rest. Because
yeah,
these are some of the things that so many people think Africa looks like. And when they want to portray Africa, they portray Africans as barbarians with markings on their faces, with all these things. No, that's not what Africa look like.
that's
So, and that is why we are trying our possible best to reconstruct the African image, especially in the international community. So
That's
that's
true. Gotcha. Well, when it comes to comics and comic books, like I said, there's so many stories that you can tell. Not just
yeah,
you know from the, I guess, science fiction or fantasy or whatnot. I mean, just everyday life as an African is a great story in and of itself. What are the kind of stories that you're hoping to tell outside of Oyo and Jakuta?
Okay, presently we're working on a project in Brown Root Studios, and it's different from the conventional, epic stories that we've always told. The story is more of a satirical representation of the Nigerian society, because over the past few years we've been having cases of police brutality, we've been having cases of extrajudicial killing from the armed forces, the police. So one of the things we intend to do presently, aside just telling traditional African stories, we want to tell satirical stories that talk about the Nigerian society and the Nigerian reality, because our content is basically to talk about Africa and the reality of Africans. So aside traditional content, we're telling satirical content. We are venturing into sci-fi very soon. We are going to be making science fiction
Yeah,
comic soon,
yeah,
and we intend to touch into several genre of content creation. Although we just want to step off with
yeah,
the traditional African stories. Then, but one thing we intend to do is, in our bid to tell science fiction, we intend to incorporate them into the African culture. Look at Black Panther, for instance. Look at vibranium. Look at the peak of scientific development,
yeah,
but there was still an infusion of African civilization, African culture, and so many things like that. It wasn't just all skyscrapers out there. It wasn't just
yeah,
all these tall buildings and the rest. Though they were tall buildings, but you can see an element of traditional African society blended with scientific development. So that is the kind of sci-fi we are going
yeah,
for, and
yeah.
it's going. And we are also going into Afrofuturism very soon. We'll be going into Afrofuturism. So we have so many things in place that we are going into very soon.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's probably the main thing that most people need to kind of understand. We all, like I said, we all have the same emotions. We all like to laugh. We all love. We, like I said, we all have comedies. We all have dramas. We all have sci-fi. So there's so many different stories that is able to be told. And I will say, this about Black Panther and God, the director just slipped my mind. He did take a lot of effort to, on detail about, dress and just the city life and all the things. Like I said, even the rural areas were like really landscaping rural areas that, like I said, a mix of it all. So I think that gave us a much better appreciation from this side that, like I said, Africa is such a much bigger thing than what we typically see on TV. And that I think, from us, most, black and African American on this side, we kind of tend to think that our history started at slavery when we came over here, and it's such a long history and so many different stories that are out there that can be told.
Yeah. Oh, so if I can chip in a little thing as well, one of the major misconception about Africa is many people believe once you mention Africa, it's a place of intense poverty.
Yeah,
It's a place of it's a place of diseases. It's a place where you find some of the worst set of humans in the world. When you talk about Africa, they talk about corruption. They talk about poverty. They talk
war,
about exactly war.
war and all of that. Yeah,
Exactly. Although to a certain extent, you can't blame people for having this misconception, because it all boils down to how the media has portrayed
yeah,
Africa, especially when you watch news items, when you watch the news, some of the things they talk about Africa is all about terror. There's no positive things coming out of Africa. But the reality is we have so many good things coming out of Africa. We have innovators, we have creators, we have brilliant minds. In fact, some of the best talents going into the Western world are coming out of
Yeah,
Africa.
yeah, yeah,
Exactly. If you look at the workforce across the world, you see that a lot of Africans are the ones who make up that workforce. Africans are brilliant. Africa is not all about war. We have, if you go into the African tourism, for instance, of which one of my friend is focusing on tourism at the moment, and one of the things he intends to do is to show the rich elements that are involved in the history of Africa and even the present state of Africa. So it's not all about war like we have
yeah,
it out there.
yeah,
So Africa is rich.
yeah.
Africa is big.
It,
Africa is
and
immense.
it's so funny that you mentioned that because I just saw a video earlier today of two young Africans that had made this robotic arm,
So,
and and they were talking about how they saw so many, and they were dropout. They had dropped out of college, but they had made this robotic arm because they were talking about how they saw so many people that weren't able to get around or move, and it was just. It's like you said, you see the technology and the innovation that comes from out of there that we just, you know, like I said, don't think is what comes from there for sure.
exactly. So we have so many great things coming out of Africa. So it's not just about war, it's not about poverty, it's not about corruption. We have amazing talents, amazing minds in Africa. We have luxurious places in Africa. We have rich tourist attraction in Africa. We have so many big things. Not even just the zebra
Yeah,
or any other thing like that. We have big things. It's just so sad that when the media wants to portray Africa, first thing you start saying is either you see kids suffering from diseases,
yeah, yeah,
kids then
yeah,
poverty stricken, or you see zebra. When they want to portray the rich aspect of Africa, they start showing zebra, they start showing the jungle, and when they want to show the bad side of Africa, they start showing, kids suffering. They start showing bombings, which is not true. We have infrastructures, we have big places in Africa,
yeah,
so
yeah.
that's one thing.
Well, and I, I, I will, and I will ask you this because I know that like I said, I gotten into this conversation, before with a couple of other, African guests that, like I said, different shifts, and I know it's different in different areas. Um, do you feel like that energy is going to be another big thing, just getting energy to all the places? Because I know some, like over here, we take for granted power and electricity in that, and I know over in Africa it's certain areas that may have it better than others, and I know a couple have said, well, power is a little more expensive, so we have to go generators and solar, this and that. Do you feel like that's a big infrastructure as far as helping, you know, more people get access to the content that's coming out of Africa?
Okay, well, I would say, electricity is one of the major things that needs to be properly stabilized in African countries. Although we have some number of African countries that have been able to get that right. For instance, when you talk about Ghana, Ghana has, to a certain extent, a stable electricity, and Rwanda has been coming up very well, and they've been topping many world countries when it comes to development and the rest. But there are so many countries that are still trying to figure out how to properly you know electricity is a major problem in many African countries, and this is not because it can't be generated, or maybe there's no enough resources or wealth that can be used to generate this electricity. But it's because there are, leaders who are getting into power,
Yeah.
leaders taking political positions, but don't care about basic things that their citizens need. So they are all concerned about, what comes to them rather than what they give to the society. So this is one of the major problem that Africa is facing. Problem of bad leadership is one thing Africa is facing. So it's one of the reasons, electricity is still yet to be stabilized, and you know, it's also affecting content creation. I must say, because for instance, if you're a digital creator, maybe you're a digital artist or a digital colorist or whatever. If you are just if everything you do centers around using electricity to power your devices,
Yeah.
you're definitely going to be facing some level of setback, because it's either you miss your deadline, you miss your production, everything, except if you can afford very good generators, fuel, and also if you can afford, the solar power like you've mentioned.
Yeah.
And some of these things can be quite expensive, especially for someone who is just starting out in the comic book career.
Yeah.
So this is one major challenge actually, and we just keep, although we can keep hoping, but we keep demanding from the government and making sure they are accountable
Yeah.
to be able to make sure these things are properly fixed. So yes, it's a challenge, and yeah.
Yeah, that's something you have to work through. We're gonna throw a few more comments in there, Mister Neil. Appreciate you tuning in. For all those that are just jumping on, I'm sitting down here with my friend Adedayo Erivic from Nigeria, uh, talking about Brown Roofs Studios and just Afrocentric comics and comic books coming out of the country, telling more authentic stories. Mr. Multiverse there. So very proud to have Adedio and Brown Roof Studios in our community. Um, let's talk a little bit about the comic Unibadan Comic Convention and what
Okay.
your purpose is, for that. Does it run hand in hand with Brown Roof Studios in that it's really trying to tell the African story, or are you looking to bring in even like Western comic artists just to expose them to all the creators that are there?
Okay, Unibadan Comic Convention is basically a campus comic convention, and it's holds yearly in the University of Ibadan. That is the premier university in Nigeria actually, because that's the school I'm attending presently. So the goal of one of the reasons I started Unibadan Comic Convention is to expose African content to more audience, because um, there's the Lagos Comic Convention, for instance, which is Africa's largest indigenous comic convention with over 6,000 attendees every year. There was one they just finished in September, which I was opportune to speak at. So one of the reasons I started Unibadan Comic Convention is to bring several creators from several parts of the country down to the university community for several people to be able to see that, oh, there are content coming out of Nigeria and Africa. And although I study and I take interest in foreign content, the Western content, but my concern is not to promote the Western content, because Western content have over the years gotten enough promotion. Now it's time for us to promote African content. So Unibadan Comic Convention is basically to promote indigenous African content from indigenous African creators. So that's the goal of the convention.
Gotcha. Now, obviously, it's a big process in putting a comic book together. I mean, are there a lot of publishers there, or do you find that are gonna you know, work with comic book creators? Because I felt like over here you got a lot of black content creators, but unless you're, spending the money yourselves to produce the book and this and that, you have to go through obviously the kind of bigger studios or distributors to get your work out there. Is that something else that's growing over on the continent, having more uh, publishers and distributors, or are you finding that as a creator you're going to have to do it kind of yourself and produce it yourself?
Okay, one major challenge of getting content out to people is the issue of getting distributors, getting proper distributors. For instance, in the Western world, we have let's say Diamond Comics distributing comics from DC, from Marvel, and so many other places like that. We have comic stores in foreign countries, but in Nigeria, it's different. We don't have distributors like we have in the Western world, and this is one of the factors affecting, the way we get African content to reach people. So initially, I tried to start a comic book store, but I discovered that there are more problems to starting a comic book store than just setting up a distribution platform. You
Yeah,
have to think about logistics. You have to think about studios printing, because printing comic books in Nigeria is very, very costly. When you want to print hard copies of your
yeah,
comic books, very costly. And then in a situation where the market is not guaranteed, it won't make so much of sense for you to just print content that you're not certain you'll be able to sell out. So that's one of the reasons many of these publishers don't just print some of their content. And if people don't print, then how do we get to distribute hard copies to readers? So these are some of the problems that needs to be tackled over time. And I'm presently working towards getting some of these things fixed. And concerning publishing your own content, it's it's difficult to get your content out there, especially in this part of the world, because it's either you have so much money for yourself to publish your own content, and if you don't have enough money, or you don't have teammates who are passionate about working with you, like I'm lucky to have in Brown Room Studios, then it becomes so difficult for you to publish your content, because there are no publishing houses like that. Although we have comic studios, we have impressive and big comic studios. We have Comic Republic, we have Unique Studios, we have Kugali Media. Kugali Media just signed a deal with Disney. I don't know if you get
yeah,
to know
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, so
and,
we
and,
have
and, and to that point,
okay.
do you feel like the people there in Africa are wanting their stories, or is it the challenge of they're used to Marvel, DC, Spider-Man, Superman, those type of things? Is that, do you see as a hurdle, or do you feel like, hey, once people know that there are much more characters out there created, by, us telling our stories, that they'll purchase and get more of that than, say, they're the typical type that they're used to, like DC, Spider Man, all the characters that, I'm pretty sure, they're over there, and they're probably, a lot of kids are probably reading them, heard of them, seen them, that type of thing. Do you think that's gonna be a big challenge, or do you feel like once it's known that we're here and we're creating, that it's going to be easier to get people to really get behind the stories?
Okay, well, I think it's quite difficult to make people like content coming from Africa, because there's this belief that Africans don't, especially Nigerian creators, excuse me, there's a belief that Nigerian creators might not be able to produce the standard that
Mm,
Marvel and DC are creating. So we are still at a phase where we need to show people that okay, it's not only in Marvel and DC that quality content are created. Nigerians, Africans can create quality content, and I'm glad that over the years, especially in comic conventions, looking at the turnout at conventions, people are starting to have a belief in African content. But still, people still, enjoy watching Marvel and DC. And here's the reason: Marvel and DC, they've spent so many years proving their standard. Over time, people have seen Marvel and DC. They've seen the evolution of Marvel and DC, and they can trust that okay, these people, whenever they want to release a content, we are so certain that they are giving us something that's up to standard.
Yeah.
And there was a time I was following a show with a show that Stanley made, and then he explained that there was a time in the Western world where people never believed that comic book making or maybe animations and all of that could be a real profession.
Yeah.
In fact, when you call yourself a comic book creator or an animator or a writer at that time, they see you as jobless, and
Yeah.
people tell you, "Oh, go get a good job." Exactly. But look at what the mainstream Western industry has become. Now, you look at the movie budgets, look at the kind of money they get back in box office and so
Yeah.
many other places. Look at the hype that they get. Look at how people immortalize some of these actors that act some of these characters.
Yeah.
So I believe that every creative community always have a phase where they need to pass. Everybody must go through a time when they need to convince their audience that oh, we can definitely give you the standard content. And I think the Nigerian and the African community right now are passing the phase, and I'm glad that if in fact we are going past the phase real fast,
Yeah.
because many of these African creators are in Marvel, they are in DC, they are in several places. For instance, Ife is one of the storyboard artists for Fast and Furious.
Mhm.
We have some Nigerian artists who are matte painters for movies like Thor Ragnarok and so many of these standard movies. So I just think it's a matter of all these people coming together and making African content get better.
Yeah.
And
No.
I think it's why I believe in the collaboration between Disney and Kugali. Although there were so many people who are of the opinion that okay, why not let's make our own content ourselves and not use the Western
Yeah.
media and all of that. But raising funds is also a problem,
Yeah.
because there was a time I was having a conversation with a sci-fi company in Nigeria, one very big studio in Lagos. And then one of the things they said was, making this content is not the problem, but how do we get to get our money back? How do we get to, how do we get people to watch
Yeah.
this content? How do
Mark
we
market
get
it,
back
all
our
that. Yeah.
exactly? How do we get our revenue back? So I think it's still a major challenge, especially raising funds for huge projects like that. It's very difficult for you to single-handedly say you want to fund an animation project or fund a movie project about Nigerian characters and all of that. So collaboration with the Western media is, should I say, inevitable at the moment. Although we
Yeah.
have people like Black Sands Entertainment that are trying to, change the narrative, trying to make their own content independently. But it's going to take a lot of time, definitely.
Yeah.
It's going to take a lot of time. So,
Yeah, and that's what I was saying as far as, and I've said this to even artists over here, that I think that's such the big challenge, because they companies like Disney, like Warner, all these companies that have been around for so long and
yeah,
basically are worldwide. So they have distribution worldwide to get, to get there. So I understand, the like you were saying, the collaboration of a company collaborating with, say, Disney, because they do have the distribution means and the dollars to put behind stories and things like that. And it's going to take time, for
Exactly.
companies over in Africa to get, to get to
So
that
that's
level and to get to that position to where, okay, now we've got the funding, the people behind us to distribute it out to, other countries, as opposed to having a company like Disney or a company like Netflix or all the other companies that, and it's a great thing because, like you said, it does give content creators over there the opportunity to tell their stories and,
yeah,
get their content out there. And that's really the best way of doing it. And one, it does expose, like I said, I think creators over there to technology over here, what they're, the style of what they're doing, the production value,
yeah,
so that, you know, it could start to get to that level to where people don't question, well, is the quality of what's coming out of Africa going to be like the quality of what we're used to over here?
definitely, definitely.
So I'm curious, what's been the best piece of advice that you've gotten or learned along this way, along your journey so far?
Okay. I've gotten to learn several um, lessons, and I've gotten several, things I've gotten to discover over time. Because I'm not just making comic books. I'm a creator,
Yeah.
and aside being a creator, I'm trying to lay the ground for other creators who are coming after me. Although I'm pretty young and I can't say I'm capable of creating a platform for people, but so far I can say that I've contributed a lot to helping indigenous African creators to get out there. So one thing I've learned over time is everything you are doing, especially as a creator in this part of the world, requires patience. Because if you are intending to just make your content, get it out real fast, and just get that market audience, like let's say Marvel and DC, then you might be making a huge mistake because Marvel and DC has been in existence for
Yeah.
several years.
Long
Exactly
time.
before, exactly, even before many of we creators right now were even born or anything. So it takes time because I see a lot of creators who are out there trying to compete on the same level with Marvel and DC. Yes, you can say quality wise, I'm seeing content from Africa competing on that level. But you have to still consider the level of experience
Yeah.
that these big companies have gotten over time, and you have to respect that as well. So just give it time, keep creating, and then you are definitely going to be making marks. You're going to be making your influence. For instance, look at Black Sands Entertainment. For instance, look at how they've been able to develop over time, and now they are becoming bigger and bigger. Look at Metaye Knights. Metaye Knights is the first crypto comic in the world.
Hmm.
And presently, they were able to raise over $1 million from Start Engine. So these are developments. Look at Stranger Comics doing so well. Look at so many publishers who started out, gave in a lot of hard work, then patience, and then over time they've been able to develop their content. So it's all about patience. It's all about believing in your craft as well, because you're definitely going to find a lot of people who talk down on you, talk down on your crafts. But if you believe in why you are starting out in the first place, it propels you to want to keep creating more and more content, because you're not just as an African creator, you're not just trying to entertain people, you're trying to make a kind of rediscovery, rediscovery of the African identity. So
Yeah.
that is one of your duty as an African creator, and you have to stick by that. You have to stand by that mandate and be able to properly put in a lot of work into making very good content. So that's one thing I've learned over time.
And I'm curious from what you just said, because like I said, over here you've got, I mean, there's animators, comic book creators that can go to people that have been doing it for years to learn. What's been the oldest kind of or elder elderly, the age wise that you've come across in your kind of studies and journey that okay, he's been doing this a little while, or is the majority of the creators that you're encountering now around your age or younger, in the younger generation, have you come across anybody that's, like I said, with Disney, you can go to Disney and find animators that have been animating for 40, 50 years or more. I mean, have you come across over there people that have been doing it a while, may not have known about it, but they've been doing it a while?
Okay, yes. The industry over here is still one where you have basically older people making comics. I mean, venturing into the business of comic making. So it's even hard for me personally to decide to become a creator and be pushing out my contents like that. So definitely, I meet a lot of you know grown up creators, and these are some of the people that I am in the same industry with. There are people who have been creating comics for over 20 years. There are some people have been creating comics and releasing content even before I myself discovered
Yeah,
what comic book as a medium is. Although I can say my growth in the comic industry is one that happened so fast, but I still get to interact with a lot of creators in the industry. We are actually way older than I am, because one of the things that has put me in conversation with so many of these people is Comics Out of Africa. The fact that I promote
yeah,
African comics, African content, so it makes me have conversations with a lot of them. So I get to learn a lot from many of them as well, and I get to have nice conversation about the industry with a lot of them.
yeah,
So aside that, I'm also quite active and in so much conversation with younger creators, because of recent there have been so many young creators around where I work. I see many young creators on social media coming from Africa, from Nigeria, and a lot of them are very good,
yeah,
though they've not been able to properly set foot into the you know African comic sphere or at the African creative space. So that is one of the reasons I decided to set out, not just for myself, but also to be able to guide some of these people and help them break into the industry properly. So because I think you asked the question the other time about how do you publish contents over here? Is it that there are publishing houses that publish contents, or you just have to create on your own? Most of the times, there are always um, people who self create over here. So they just make their content, they market their content themselves, and all of that. But of recent, I'm trying to start something like image comics, where you have different creatives coming together, and then they have like a publishing house that can put their content out there for them.
yeah,
So because I noticed that there are so many young people, especially in this part of the world, who have so much passion. They are interested in making comics, they're interested in creating content, but they're discouraged because there are no studios willing to pick them up, because many studios are concerned and interested in finished products. There are no studios intending to brew some of these young creators into great creators. So it's a problem. And I see many of these young creators dropping out, um, losing that interest and all of that. So one thing I want to do is create a platform that can bring them in, build them, and also give them a platform to publish their own content. So it's one thing. So I get to be in conversation with the older creators, and I get to be in conversation with the younger creators as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, and maybe you kind of answered this before, and I know Vortex is a digital platform. Is is hardcover comics is big because it is over here. Even though I've talked to a lot of several people that are kind of working on making comics digital, and I guess every DC and Marvel does it too to some extent, but hardcover books, actual physical comic books, is a big thing and a big industry over here. Is Do you find that that will be the case over there, or more digital people consuming it online digitally?
Okay, the event of um, social media has made comics get so digital. Aside comics, even so many other things are becoming quite digital. Look at gone were the days when we had people reading newsprints. People hardly read newsprints now. You can always log into social media and then you read the news for yourself. Same thing with magazines and several other things like that. And I think the same thing is befalling comic books. And it's not like before where the only way people can get to read comic books is when they get to buy comic books. Look at the 90s where you have X-Men #1 by Jim Lee, you have
Yeah,
Spider-Man by Todd McFarlane, and you don't get to see all this content except you buy the hard copy. But now with the invent of social media, you can access all this content online. You can subscribe to platforms to read them. But the print is still there. For instance, in comic conventions, you get to see people bring down their prints for sale, and you see a lot of people. A lot of people used to sell out when it comes to selling out their prints. The last convention in Lagos, which we attended, I mean, Brown Root Studios was at Lagos Comic Convention, and some of the comic books that we took down there, we sold a large number of them, and I have some prints. So we have, I don't know, this
yeah,
is but some these are some prints as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, we get to distribute these prints, we get to sell them. So people still have so much interest in the print. So, but I think it's more of being an hardcore comic book collector.
Yeah,
For
that's what I was saying. It's a novelty kind
exactly,
of over here where collectors love
exactly,
having, card copy. And I'm curious, like
exactly.
I said, you've had several comic conventions. Like you said, Lagos is the biggest over there. Is the comic conventions over there kind of like how they are here? We got a lot. Like I said, I went to my first one here in Houston, and people love to dress up, cosplay, that type of thing. Is that how it is over there? A lot of people love to dress up, or is it just kind of seeing the work? I mean, what is it a comic convention like over in Lagos in
Comic
Nigeria?
convention, yeah, comic conventions over here are very very big. It's not just like an artist meetup. The convention is different from just artists or readers coming together and then checking contents. It's bigger than that. We have cosplays, we have um, we have meet and greets. We have
Yeah.
several other things that are featured in the comic convention. For instance, the last Lagos Comic Convention, we have investors who came down to the convention
Mm.
to look at the convention. But like I said, everything over here, especially as regards the creative space, is still growing. So you can't compare Lagos Comic Convention to, let's say, San Diego Comic
Yeah.
Convention or New York Comic Convention. These conventions have been in existence for several years. But the Lagos Comic Convention, for instance, will be celebrating their 10th anniversary next year. So you can say they are still pretty young, and they've been doing a lot of work gathering that massive audience of over 6,000 people coming at once. So it's not just about artists bringing their work and then people buying them or anything. We have cosplay, we have master classes, we have several
Panels,
other, exactly, we have
discussions, and
panel
yeah.
sessions, we have discussions, we have several other interesting things that you know comic convention in the Western world also have provided. So
Well, do you see a lot? Like I said, um, do you see a lot of Western companies now starting to come over there to partner with studios, um, such as some of the ones there, or do you feel like okay, it's still our studios, or are you starting to see an influx of, like I said, Disney, Netflix, and some of the other Western companies coming over there to partner with companies there?
yes, definitely. There's a level of influx from the Western publishers to African creators. As of recent, Comic Republic had a collaboration with Facebook where they talked about spreading false news on Facebook and how it can be copied. This is one of the major developments that has occurred over time. And even Brown Roof Studios, we had a partnership with Four Media,
Mm-hmm.
a very big platform in London with over 3 million views per month. And one of the things they do is you know publish, promote our contents because they are focused on promoting indigenous African content. We've had platforms like Comic House in Argentina trying to promote our content as well. So there's a kind of partnership between the Western world and the Nigerian world, the Nigerian creative space, the African creative space at the moment. And we have so many, you know, African creators or African studios having partnership with the foreign media to just push content out there. Look at Kugali and Disney, for instance.
Yeah.
That's one example.
Mm-hmm.
I know of a studio. I know of a studio that is partnering with the likes of DC to make content. So there's an influx. And aside that, foreign creators are now coming to Africa to seek labor when it comes to making comic books. You see some of them come down, hire Nigerian creators to work on their comics
Yeah.
and several other things like that. So, the invent of social media can be said to be a major contributor to this development. Globalization is more and more getting intense, and creators are starting to have cross-cultural interaction. So it's something that is happening.
Yeah.
Western media now partner with African creative studios.
Yeah. Now, is your hope for Brown Roof to get, expand outside of comics, say get into animation, animated films, that type of thing as well?
Oh yes, we are definitely having plans for all those. At the moment, we are making just um, little clips of our animation because we are just setting up our animation um, aspect, the animation sector of the studio. But one thing we want to do now, we want to have our ground on comic book at the moment, so that when we know that okay, our characters are known by people, our characters are popular, then we can start making animations about them, because our characters are starting to get the attention that is needed. For instance, I remember when we were releasing Jakuta issue 1, we had over 1,000 downloads in the
Mm,
first days of release, which is quite impressive for a studio that is just starting out.
yeah.
Because we just set out into creating Brown Room Studios just a year ago. We just clocked a year, so it was quite impressive for us. And aside people reading our comics, we have people who, because of our content, have given us projects from both home and abroad. So it's one thing that has been inspiring us to push further, and we are basically um, pushing also into other creative medium like animation, like game. we have a snippet of one of our games right now. I have that somewhere here. So we are definitely venturing into all these
Yeah.
aspects.
And
Yeah,
see, that's and like I said, I've told several guests this. That's why I enjoy doing the show because it's given me this opportunity to connect with content creators that I wouldn't normally have known about or even been able to connect with. And I'm so excited about just the few content creators that I've connected with so far that I've had on the show. Like I said, from Nigeria to Lagos to just all over. And I know that there's just a ton of content, super talented content creators out there, just waiting to tell their stories and waiting for the opportunity to just tell their stories. So I'm always humbled and excited to, like I said, highlight companies such as yourself, content creators such as yourself, putting out content that's really great content. And like I said, for everybody just watching, all this stuff is going to be in the show notes. So I do highly suggest that you jump over, read the comics, check out the comics that are coming out of Brown Roof Studios. Because, like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed the story when I read it. It just, like I said, okay, I can't wait for the next issue. So you're
definitely.
gonna have to make sure that you send me the next issue because I'm waiting to see what happens from the story that I read. And like I said, I enjoy connecting with creators such as yourself because, like I said, I think it makes us better to where we're all able to work together in at some point in the future or whatnot on so many different stories, um, even from a east west perspective of what kind of story could we meld coming together. Excites me, and just super talented people just coming out.
Yeah, yeah. So, I really appreciate what you are doing with your platform, especially talking about creators who are from Africa, and giving them a platform to show their content and to talk about their content. You know, it's high time people started to know about content from Africans and from Black people across the world, and know how creative um, we all are. And that is one of the reasons I'm going to say um, people should check out Comics Archive Africa, because the goal is to promote African content, promote Black content. So you can always check it out. You can always drop your contents in the message section. I'll definitely check through them. And what we do is we give promotion to every studio out there who are doing amazing works. Presently on the platform, we have over 100 studios featured, and 100 over 100 comic books, over 200 comic
Yeah,
books
yeah,
from indigenous from indigenous, independent African and Black content. And I'm so happy about that. That in the Western world, we have Bleeding Cool, we have the comic book resource, we have several platforms that are dedicated towards talking about Western comics.
yeah,
So why don't we have that in Africa as well?
yeah.
So that is one of the reasons Comic Saga of Africa is there. And I'll be dropping a magazine very soon as well. The magazine is basically just for the promotion of African comics and content. So I'll definitely show it to you when it's ready,
Yeah,
so that being
definitely. So I can promote it, highlight it. I'm super excited about going through the archive and connecting with other creators to get them on the show. Because, like I said, I've come across and talk with fortunately so many over there, so many Africans that are now living over here working at big studios. It's just such an amazing, like I said, such an amazing thing. And I enjoy connecting with them and hearing them say the same things they want to tell, all these rich stories that they know about now and get their content out. I'm kind of, like I said, I like the fact that they're working at studios like Disney or Warner's and this and that because they are learning this kind of craft that they probably wouldn't get if they were living over there, and now they have this knowledge of being able to tell, like I said, their stories, know how to produce it and tell it and get it out there and share it with the world. So I'm excited, and I feel like what I do is a small part in really, like I said, helping to promote, talent such as yourselves, companies such as yourselves that are really out there doing great work and looking to, level up and just get better and better and better. So, like I said, I have to thank you for being on the show and taking the time to be on the show to tell us about Brown Roof's content or Comics Archive Africa and all the things that you're doing to help promote African stories from African content creators. I can't thank you enough. And definitely, like I said, everyone, all these links are going to be in the show notes. So I, I do highly suggest that you check out all the content. And let me jump over and throw this up here for sure because I definitely want to do that. Make sure that you can. Let me take this off here. That you connect with Adedayo at Comics Archive Africa, Instagram.com/Comics Archive Africa. He's on Instagram himself. Also on Facebook, make sure that you check him out and connect with him there. Also, go to Brown Roof Studios. Great website. Got some great content up there. Like I said, check out Jakuta. It's a great story. I love it. The artwork is great. The story is great. And it's just, like I said, I'm super excited about the content coming out there, out from you. And you definitely have to share when, new things are coming from Brown Roof so that we can share them with the community as well. There you go. So everybody, check him out there. Make sure you connect with him there. Uh, this has been a great episode, and I can't thank my guest and friend enough for coming on and talking to us about everything that's coming from the continent of Africa. I want to make sure I get that right because I admit I've I get bad at that myself. I say it's a country and it's not. It's a continent. So, for sure. Mr. Multiverse, definitely, again, we are very proud of it. Like I said, I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode as much as I have doing it and connecting. Um, Adedayo, if you could hang out for just a second in the green room while I close out the show, I appreciate it. I understand if you do have to jump off, but I would love if you could connect or if you could hang out in the green room for a second while I close out the show. Um, did you get that? Did you did you hear me, Adedayo? Or can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. I'm not sure if you can hear me. Can you hear me, Adedayo? I think he's listening to the replay. Uh, but hang out if you can
No,
hear me.
I think there's something wrong with I don't know what's happening. There's
Can you?
something wrong with the connection.
Are you? Are you able to hear me
I
now?
think something is wrong with the connection.
Okay. Well, if you have to go, I understand. If you can, I'm going to throw this up in the personal chat. If you, if you have to go, if you have to go, I understand. If he's listening to the audio. If you can, hang out in the green room while I close out the show. So hopefully he heard that because he's listening on his audio. So,
I don't think I can hear you any longer. I think the show is.
well, you're
Can you?
getting,
Is it
yeah,
your connection or is it my connection over here?
you're getting a delay.
Well, it
You
was great coming on your show actually, and I'm super happy to be on your show. I'm glad for um, the conversation as well, and I'm saying thank you to everybody who joined in on the show. I'm saying thank you to everybody who got to hear me out, and to every creator out there. Saying thank you for creating your content and thank you for giving people something amazing to check out. So thank you so much.
got you, got you. Well, like I said, we kind of lost the audio, but we are going to hopefully he can hang out. Hopefully he can hear me while I'm kind of closing out the show. The audio kind of froze up a little there, so we lost a little bit of the connection. But fortunately, like I said, we got pretty much all of it pretty good. So I appreciate again my guest and friend Adedayo for coming on and telling us about all the great stuff coming out from Brown Roost Studios and the continent of Africa. I appreciate everybody that's tuned in. Again, all his information is going to be in the show notes once the episode is up. So please make sure that you connect with him. Check out his story, other great stories that are in the archive. It'll give you a much better appreciation and connection with the content of Africa, our sister, mother continent of Africa for sure. I'm definitely going to check out some more creators' work over there to see if I can connect with some more people. So I'm super excited about that for sure. Again, like I said, all these links will be up in the show notes. So please make sure that you go check it out. Again, like I said, make sure that you get connected with us. You'll be able to check out the episode again on the YouTube channel. I'm going to throw this up here again. Check out our YouTube channel, subscribe, get connected, throw a comment. We want to hear comments and give a thumbs up, hit the bell notification so that you are notified of when great new content becomes available. We always want you to be a part of the community for sure. Also, please make sure that you get connected into. I want to make sure I throw this up. Get connected into our Facebook group community. Facebook.com/group/the color of motion. It's growing, engaging conversations, a lot of fun conversations. A lot of the guests are in there. You get to see what they're doing, the things that are happening with them, have some great conversations for sure. So make sure that you're definitely plugged in to the channel. Again, also make sure if you want some swag items, make sure that you sign up for the notifications, thecolorofmotion.net/swag. Um, and you'll get notified. You'll be put on the mailing list. You'll be notified of when the content becomes available and all the merch becomes available. Like I said, my goal is definitely by the first of the year, but we're trying to get it out by before Christmas because they make great Christmas gifts for sure. Also, we got a great contest going on where you can win some cool prizes and some cool swag from the show. Make sure, in order to get it and enter the contest, make sure you go over to the YouTube channel, comment on the YouTube episode, the anniversary episode. It's got to be the anniversary episode. But make sure you comment on the anniversary episode. Get your swag on and you'll be entered into the contest. Also, you got to make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're going to be running this till the 1st of December, and then we're going to announce the winner. But you definitely have an opportunity to win some of this cool gear for sure. So we're looking forward to it. Let me jump back over to this scene here. Appreciate you there, Mr. Multiverse, for tuning in. I'm sure Adedayo appreciates it too as well. Like I said, he did a great job. It was a great episode for sure, and I had a lot of fun connecting with my friend there, and looking forward to having him back on the show to talk about all the other great stuff that's coming out from Brown Roof. So that was a lot I had to get in. So I appreciate you guys sticking with me. Appreciate everybody that's came in today. I appreciate everybody that's going to check out the episode later on. Like I said, it'll be up this week. So you're more than welcome to check out this episode and all the other great episodes that we've had for sure. So with that, I always forget to, I always like to play background music. That's fun. I gotta get in the habit of remembering that. So I appreciate everybody tuning in to the show. It's been, like I said, a lot of fun. Next week, it's gonna be even another great show. We got another super talented artist and friend coming in, Miss Anika Elise, character setup artist with Bento Box Entertainment. She's coming on and going to give a lot of great perspective about being a woman in the industry. So we are super excited. I'm super excited and looking forward to it for sure. So with that, I think it's time to close out the show. I appreciate everybody again for tuning in to this great episode. We are rolling right along, going into the holiday. So I hope everybody's ready for Thanksgiving and the holiday coming up. Like I said, we got a lot of great things planned for the show, and I'm super excited about rolling them out for sure. So with that, have a great rest of the day, have a great rest of the weekend, and a great and productive week. I will see you next Saturday, same bat time, same bat channel. Have a great one, everyone.